So yeah, I was reading an article that in Thailand, I didn't click and read the whole article. I think the article was entitled "How Sex Workers Are Making Money Without the Tourists," or the Farang. The Farang is an overseas tourist, like a gringo would be in Mexico, I guess. And so yeah, the sex workers not getting enough work because there's not enough Farangs around to inquire into their services. So yeah, I'll have to click on the article and see what they're. I don't know if I want to know what they're doing to make ends meet without that going on.
They're probably bricklaying or gardening or something.
Something beautiful, and
Well, the massage industry, it'd be a shambles at the moment. There'd be not a lot of knock on the cock at the moment.
they're just opening back up now. You can go get them.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of them have been, a little bit, doors are shut and it says closed, but if you go knock on the back, you'll get in. But there wasn't, speaking of articles, there was a funny one a couple of weeks ago, because I think now they're allowed to open fully, but a couple of weeks ago they were allowed to partially open, and I think it was for clickbait, but the title was "Massage Parlours Opening for Below the Waist Treatments Only." Because you're not meant to be near the face because that's how corona spreads. So it was a very funny title. But you do like it's funny that I'm on the scooter going down the main road here, and there's a couple of massage places, and now they're open again. All the pretty Thai girls are out the front. Hello,
Yeah.
and I love it because I'm just like, hello. I don't go in there, but it feels the ego gets stroked a little bit, even though they're doing it purely because they want money. But I still receive it. I still accept it. But then you go to like a different part of town, and you hear this. Hello. And then I turn around to like wave, and it's clearly a lady boy. Like no, trying to hide it, and I'm like, oh no, I feel kind of weird now.
Oh, so your ego is sexist, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because your ego's not the only thing they're trying to stroke. It's
yes,
come
I
on
know.
in for a rank.
Yeah, come on in for rank. So
Enough
yeah,
of
no,
that time.
it's interesting times over here, but I'm not gonna get out of my comfort zone in that respect, but we are gonna talk about comfort zones in general today.
We are. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Woke Blokes podcast. I'm Nick Sutherland from Myndfit, and joined, as always, by Ryan Hassan from the Centre for Healing.
Oh, I like how you did the intro.
I know, right?
I just
you
sit
weren't gonna
back
do
and
it, so I thought,
sit back
fuck
and enjoy it.
I'll,
You go for it.
Well, I wanted to get out of my comfort zone because you're the one that usually does it. So
Yeah, it felt good. I enjoyed that, and it's just us two today. We've had been rocking the guests the last few weeks.
yeah, just the deadly duo. We've got the band back together. So,
The band's back together, and we do have some guests lined up for the next couple of weeks too.
Yes, we do. And I think we're going to get Deb back again as well. There's been lots of great feedback from having a woke woman. And as we spoke about, she's an untapped resource, that one. So,
Oh, she's a ripper. She's the ripper. Even like before we pressed record, and even after we stopped recording, she just kept going. There's so much there. That was a very fast hour and a half that we were recording for. I'm looking forward to hearing more from Deb.
Yes, me too. So, in case the listeners haven't picked up on it, we are talking about comfort zones today, and we're going to talk about the pros and cons, and what is a comfort zone, what's the benefits of staying in it, why do people stay in it, and why do people get out of it, and yeah, just thought we'd have a bit of a philosophical chat about the comfort zone.
Yeah, and a bit of a deep dive.
Yeah. Once upon a time, I was what I now class as a comfort slob. So I'd love my comfort zone. I didn't want to be challenged. I didn't want to, experience hardship. If that was back at the time where I had agoraphobia and everything. I couldn't leave my house, so it got me staying in my comfort zone and avoiding all that hurt or all that challenge or whatever you want to call it, all that discomfort. I was protecting myself, and it's funny that looking back, that 30-year-old version of me that couldn't open the door, I can just picture him with this massive bodyguard with his arms wrapped around him, and that was anxiety. And it's like, no, Nick, we're not going outside today. It's too dangerous. It's too uncomfortable. There's too much out there that could hurt you. I'm going to keep you safe, keep you inside. And a lot of me was going, "Oh, thank you, bodyguard. That's wonderful. Yeah, protect me."
Mm.
But so it was good in one way, but it wasn't. It was good in the short term, but not the long term. If that makes sense, it wasn't helping me in a really healthy way. It was helping me in an unhealthy way. It was more enabling, I suppose.
Yeah, it's that I was interesting. I was having this conversation this morning with a colleague Matt, and we've been doing some courses and everything, and talking a lot about our the nervous system and how we go through certain things, and our nervous system gets so activated and alive that it's just always trying to protect us. And often, and then we're trying to think about how, if the nervous system had a language, what would it be? And it's like those, I think those big arms around you, or I imagine even chains. We're kind of wrapped in chains that we're not able to break free from, and it's like this nervous system saying, no, stop, don't go out, don't see that person, don't apply for that job, or in your case, don't even leave the house, stay
Don't go to the
inside,
letterbox.
don't go to the letterbox because in here safe. Let me try and keep you safe. And it's like that.
But what it was keeping me... Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
Well, what it was keeping me safe from was an imagined
Yeah.
reality. And it wasn't... basically, long story short, I was linked in with Veterans Affairs, Department of Veterans Affairs, and I was trying to get some assistance and support of them. And because I was so unhealed back then, because I was so hypersensitive and easily triggered... the very thought of receiving a letter and saying, "No, Nick, we can't help you," is what was crippling me. It was my mind was disabling my body. And I've spoken about this before, that life-saving thought that came through, that this is so irrational. You're a fully grown man. You cannot use your perfectly working arms and fingers to open a door to leave the house. It's so irrational, and that blinding thought of irrationality. And if my mind's capable of this at this end of the spectrum, what's it capable of at the other end of the spectrum if I do some work and retrain it? So because my mind was so conditioned to bouncing between the past and the future, or they don't exist, so it was bouncing between my memory and my imagination, I was completely unable to stay present and rational and logical and calm and composed, and just okay, open the door, walk out the letterbox, the letter will say, and I'll just manage whatever it says, and I'll be okay regardless. I couldn't go into that constructive, positive, healthy thinking, because I'd spent so long allowing that anxiety to imprison me. I was like, a padded cell as well. It was safe, comfortable. Don't go out there.
Yeah, and it kind of reinforces itself, because it's like those arms that were around you, and we'll say that was your nervous system saying, stay safe, stay safe, stay safe. Then we kind of think that it is helping us stay safe, so we kind of then thank it. It's like, thank you for keeping me safe. But it's like that same thing that's bonding us is fooling us into thinking that's keeping us safe, instead of saying, that's rubbish, let me go outside. We're just saying, oh, thank you so much for keeping me safe. And then we listen to it, and then we thank it. And we listen to it, and we thank it. And then oftentimes, and we're going to talk about comfort zone gradually expanding, which is what we want in life, because we want to be more comfortable in more situations. But in this case, the comfort zone just shrinks. And for you, it shrunk down to just your house. That was the only place.
Mm-hmm. Totally. But interesting, when I finally broke free, did the work over 12 months, went and studied, opened up my own practice, I'd often ask people this question. I'd say, imagine that part of you is anxiety sitting next to you as a person. And I'd watch for their response just to that, and all of a sudden, their eyes would get wider, or they'd tense up a little bit. And I'd say, now, what would you want to say to that person? What would you want to do to that person? And 9 times out of 10, the answer was violent. It was, I want to burn it, stab it, blow it up. Someone wanted to spear it with a trident. It was just
love the honesty, by the way. I think that's actually beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, okay. And what is it that you'd like to be feeling within yourself in general? And I was happy. I'm like, okay, so what is the definition of happiness? I don't know. getting what I want or not having this. No, the definition of happiness is to be content. So if you've got this inner conflict, if part of you loves anxiety because it keeps you safe, but the rest of you hates anxiety because it stops you from going to the movies or being able to get on a train, and so much, I don't want to say I cured, but so much irritable bowel syndrome or IBS was alleviated through helping people on that deeper level. And alleviating that anxiety, because that IBS was like the arms wrapping around it. It was like, don't go to that party. I'm gonna literally make you shit yourself, so you can't leave the house and go to that party.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. It's incredible how we operate.
It's incredible. I know from personal experience. I have Crohn's disease, which is a bowel disease, and I went through surgery, I went through medication, I went through that many changes of diet. I did that many fucking diets in my 20s, Nick. Like, it's unreal. I read every book, made all these changes, and I would barely be able to make any change in the symptoms. And obviously the medication comes along with side effects. I was either a catabolic steroid. They're like, "Oh, we'll put you on steroids." I'm like, "Oh, awesome, I'll get jacked." But they're instead of anabolic steroids, they're this is my mind, right? But instead of anabolic steroids, which means help things grow, they're catabolic steroids, which means it helps things waste away. And there's so many side effects with those. It was either those, or what I ended up on more was immune suppressants. So Crohn's disease they classify as an autoimmune disease. So for reasons they don't know, the immune system starts attacking itself in this situation anywhere along the stomach and bowel. And so you take medication to lower your immune response because they think, well, that means it'll lower the symptoms. Didn't lower the symptoms much, and in the meantime, you keep getting fucking sick all the time because you have a low immune system. And so a lot of people with these irritable bowel, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, which all come under kind of the one banner. I mean, the irritable bowel was created as a term because they couldn't quite fit it into the box of Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. And then it wasn't for me until I started dealing with my anxiety and dealing with my relationship to Crohn's disease that things started to change. I remember a big moment for me was I was listening to Dr. John Demartini around that time. I was sort of just getting into personal development, self-development, and that kind of thing. And he was saying that, look, every single thing that happens in our life is perfectly balanced. It's actually neutral. There's a positive side, there's a negative side. If we are perceiving something as negative, we're not suffering from, say, Crohn's disease or suffering from something that happened to us in our life. We're just suffering from an imbalanced perspective. Okay. Yeah. So he's like, if you've got an imbalanced perspective, start to try and balance it out. Start to write down the positives with, if say it's a situation that happened in the past or something like Crohn's disease. So I remember I got on my old computer. This is, we must be talking 10 years ago now.
Commodore 64.
Commodore, it wasn't that long ago, 486. And opened up, like a notepad document or whatever, and just wrote at the top, I'm like, the benefits to me having Crohn's disease. And I remember I stared at that fucking page and I'm like, what? Like it's really hard, and it's meant to be hard because the whole reason that you've got this imbalanced perspective is because you've subconsciously or consciously blocked out that side.
So but getting out of your comfort zone by sitting there trying to do this.
Yeah. Because I didn't want to do it. Because then part of your mind says, Crohn's disease is shit. Why did life give it to me, or why did God give it to me? It's funny we don't believe in God, right? Now I've got this could be another. This is another podcast that we could do about God. So I was very much a non-believer in God. Wasn't raised in a Christian or Catholic household. Just didn't believe in God. But it's funny how when things get really bad, we're like, fuck you, God, why did you do this? Or when things get really bad, we're like, God, please help me. It's like we go when we are stuck at this extreme. So anyway, I started writing out some benefits to having Crohn's disease, and I think I got 2 in the first sitting. But Dr. Don DeMartini said you need like 50 to 100, so keep coming back to it, right? Because there's a lot of work required. So the next day came back to it. Next day, it grew to 10, it grew to 20, and I noticed by going through that simple process, and there was stuff I had to do after that, but just by going through that simple process, all of a sudden my symptoms started going down drastically, because now it changed my relationship. Because by, like, it's what's the saying? Whatever we resist persists. So it's like I'm trying to suppress and push away. And I hated people talking about it. Like even my ex-wife, she was so good through that period, but sometimes she would bring it up to friends, like, oh, we can't go to that thing. And I always tell her, don't tell her it's because of my Crohn's disease. Like I really wanted to hide it and keep it hidden away. And the funny thing is, when we try and keep it hidden away, it just wants expression and bursting out, like the anxiety we're talking about with these other people.
So when I listen to that, I'm hearing through my filter lots of these cognitive distortions and CBT terms. So you're thinking it's fair and unfair. Why me? You're blaming. It's jumping to conclusions. Worst case scenario. This is what. But the big one is you're disqualifying the positives. So that's that imbalance. I think it's that. Okay, well, I'm only focused on the negative. I'm going to create a reality of negativity. It's our perception creates our reality. So what he got you to do is to consciously shift your perception, which then shifts your reality and brings that balance back into play.
And that was that back then. It was all very new. That was like one of my first forays into this personal development. Before then, I wouldn't have known. What is this
personal development you speak of?
I wouldn't have. I don't even like that term, but yeah, it's like
personal development, spiritual growth.
Spiritual growth. It's just I before that I wouldn't have known that I could have a different perspective around a certain situation, because I so believed my mind, and I so was my mind, that it's like, let's say, and this is interesting now looking back on reflection. So say anything happened, like something at work happened, then my mind would go, this is unfair, or for that reason, that person's a dick, whatever it was, and that was the end of the story. There was no even possibility that I could reframe or start to change how I perceive a certain situation, because I thought I was right. And that's what happens when we haven't done much of this work and we identify strongly with our mind. We think that we're right about everything. And I think that the more that you start to do this work, we realize how much we have no idea what's going on and we'll give meaning to whatever it is.
If you're not your mind anymore, you said I was so in my mind, what are you if not your mind?
It's a very deep philosophical question. I'm an indwelling being. I'm in here somewhere. So let's
you were just observation.
I'm life. Like I'm like you. I'm like a dog. I'm like a tree. I'm like the whole planet. I'm probably like the whole universe. I'm just life, just having an experience. Now, then there's this indwelling awareness, because it's like, and this is something I get people encouraged to look at. It's like, if I'm aware that I'm thinking, and we're all aware that I'm thinking, for the people that aren't, like you'll speak to them and go, that voice that's in your head, and then they're like, I don't have a voice, and I'm like, that voice in your head that's saying I don't have a voice, that's the voice that we're talking about, right? So we're all aware that we have words and images up in our mind. Well, how are we aware that we have thoughts and images in our mind?
An example of this is, for the listeners to try and interpret this a bit easier. So the other day I walked out of my house and I've got spotlights on the front of my truck. Well, I had spotlights on the front of my truck, and as soon as I saw that, as soon as I came into that stimulus, that the spotlights were no longer there, it's funny how I observed myself observing the stimulus, and so I observed myself go, that's interesting. Usually there would have been some spotlights there. I wonder where they've gone. Likelihood is they've been stolen. All right, well that's not ideal. And I saw myself go into that constructive thinking I talk about, and it was like, I wonder what these blokes or women or whoever it was, kids, I wonder what they must have been experiencing. What would life be like for them? I went into empathy and compassion, because I realised there's nothing I can do about it. I can't change the situation. And I observed myself going, what can I do? I can get angry and it's not going to bring my spotlights back, or I can go into an acceptance and not get disturbed, and it's not going to bring the spotlights back. So which of those two things am I going to go into? Let's go into acceptance. And I jumped in my truck and drove off. But I also remember observing a part of me held up the Holocaust and thought of Dr. Viktor Frankl coming out of the Holocaust, and everything can be taken from a man, but the last of his personal rights to choose how he feels in any given situation. Like, this dude just experienced hell on earth. And then I held up me losing my spotlights next to the Holocaust, and it's
bit of perspective.
Really yeah, kind of put things in perspective. And I was like, well, everything can be taken from a man, his spotlights, but the last of his personal rights to choose how he feels. And then I went into a bit of William Wallace. I'm like, you may take my spotlights, but you'll never take my happiness. And it was hilarious. But bring it back to today's topic. So that was the way my mind naturally flowed into that state, and it was really wonderful to sit there and observe that. Where in the past I would have gone into such destructive, such toxic, such negative behaviour. So I had to get out of my comfort zone and go and learn how to rewire literally my mind. I had to go and put months and months and months and years of work into stopping and pausing and catching and observing and shifting and changing. And the byproduct of that is that my day wasn't ruined. My week wasn't ruined.
And that all started though from you walked out and there was a stimulus. The mind generates those thoughts itself. The mind is like an appliance. It generates thoughts. But then you said the words, I observed that. So I observed that, and then I was able to use my personal will to redirect that thinking. Where most people get stuck early on is that there's no observer. Like, there is an observer, but they're not aware of it.
Well, because a metaphor for that is our thoughts are like a river or a stream, and most people, and myself and yourself included, spend all of our lives in that stream. We spend our lives in our thoughts, and sometimes the stream will be calm and okay, and other times the stream will turn into a torrent, a river, raging rapids, and we get swept away in our thoughts. So essentially what I've had to learn to do is to step out of that river and sit on the bank and just look at those thoughts and not get swept away. There goes a negative thought. Oh, there goes a destructive thought. Oh, there goes a compassionate thought.
It's a great analogy.
Yeah, and so it's just we're sitting on the bank, just observing them, just understanding we can't stop our thoughts, but we can get out of them and just, But once again, that takes so much work to do. It takes practice and repeated practice and effort and repeated effort. And a lot of people, A, don't know that you can do that, and then B, aren't willing to do that work because they just want to stay in their comfort zone. It's too hard. I've got this too hard basket. I'm just going to put everything in that too hard basket. Okay. Stay in your suffering then.
Stay in your suffering. You're describing waking up. This podcast is called Woke Blokes. That process of stepping out of the river and watching the river is waking up. Just waking up to what's going on up here. We do it with our thoughts and emotions.
Yeah.
That reminds me, I had one early on, just not long after I got clean. And one of the big processes of me getting clean was first understanding, hey, you're not your thoughts and emotions. There's something that you experience, which then gives us the option. We have options then, when we realize like we're glued to our thoughts and emotions, they're us, and then we just act unconsciously based on them. And then we create a break, which is waking up. So now I can start to watch this stuff. And I remember I'd been clean only a few weeks and I needed a job. I needed some money. I didn't have much money coming in. So a friend was nice enough to offer.
Stop dealing drugs?
Yes, that's right. Finally, this is where the story kind of goes. I got a job and doing some work for a mate, cabinet making, just doing some labouring for the week. And so worked for him for the week. Friday comes around, I'm heading off. He gives me an envelope. He was paying me cash for the week. And so on the way home in the car, had to stop at Woolies and get some groceries, some stuff for dinner. And I pull over the car, I'm like, I'll open the envelope and it's a wad of 50s. That's the pay for the week. So now this self-generating mechanism, right? Because all I'm doing is, my mind is looking at the situation in front of it through the senses and referring back to the whole history of ourselves as a human to try and bring up relevant information or data.
What am I meant to do with this?
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So I see a wad of 50s. The last time I saw a wad of 50s was when I was dealing and using drugs. That was my whole day, was how much money have I got, how much drugs can I buy? And so that's what thought pops up. Now, when we're glued to the thoughts, we don't have any options, right? So then that thought goes to the next thought. Oh, that's right. Then I imagine myself using, and then my heart rate starts building up, and then I'm like, fuck, where's my phone? Where's the number of that dealer? And this is how most of us operate, not just with drugs, with anything in our life, with anything that we just follow these thought streams and emotions. But when we have that space, that we're out of the river, then we just see that thought come up. So it is like one going down the river, and we're like, oh, look at that. How funny is that?
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's funny. Like, I laughed at it. It's like, oh, that's funny. And so what happens then, all of a sudden, I've got so many options now because I realise I've just seen a file from the past that's come up, and I don't judge it because we can't control this shit. Like, everyone listening now, don't think of a pink elephant in a fridge. Do not think of a pink elephant in a fridge. You can't fucking do it. So you're not going to beat yourself up.
I just watched a pink elephant in a fridge floating down the river then.
and so we can't, like, 98% of thoughts are just self-generated. We don't have the control over them. But then we do have options if we're step back. So for me, I laughed at it, went into Woolies, got my dinner, and went home. Right? So we create so much more options in our life.
And as Viktor Frankl said, he turned that everything can be taken from a man, quote, and broke it down into an equation, basically, between stimulus and response is a space, and in that space lies our power to choose, and in that choice lies our freedom. So you're saying you have options now, you have choice. Essentially, you have freedom to choose. You have your free will back. You've stepped out of that autopilot, that mindless, just patterning, and you've actually broken that cycle, and you can step out and go, oh, is this... you can make a conscious choice, a more woke choice, and go, is this a decision I want to make? It's the same as being hungry and tired and got to go home, and you start thinking, oh, I've got to cook dinner from scratch, and it's going to be hard. You drive past KFC or Macca's and you go, fuck it, I'm just going to pull in here. If that's your patterning, whatever, then you'll just do it automatically. But if you can actually be conscious and present in that moment, because you're not your thoughts anymore, and you've got this observer that's more in play, you can actually go, oh, yeah, I really want to go in there because it's going to be easy, but I'm going to take the hard path and go home and have that nutritious meal because I'll feel better the next day and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So our decision making vastly improves, our lives vastly improves, our health, mental, physical, nutritional, vastly improve.
And I will put a caveat on that, is that people with trauma will have trouble with that. I know that for me and people that I've worked with to say, and this is down the extreme end of the spectrum, but if there's trauma in our system, I used to have let's say I had the urge to use drugs, and all of a sudden I'm at home, I wasn't going to use drugs, and I would have that thought and that urge, and I would recognize that, and I'd say, no, like you said, you were never going to do this again. And I would sometimes wait half an hour, 1 hour, sometimes even 2 hours, and just sit with that. But I had so much trauma in my system, my nervous system was that jacked that urge would just grow and grow and grow. And it got to a point where I was basically like, you have to go and get drugs or you're going to kill yourself. And so if people are having that kind of experience, then there's trauma in the system that does need to be addressed.
And that could be with alcohol or gambling or shopping or anything, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. So all right, back to more comfort zone stuff.
I think that was great, because a lot of that speaks of what's outside the comfort zone when you finally break through it. And I love that expression, a ship is safe in harbour, but that's not what ships are built for. So imagine the mouth of that harbour is like the edge of our comfort zone. And so many people, metaphorically, are in the ship and they'll sail around in harbour and they'll come to the edge of their comfort zone, and then they'll create that too hard basket. This is the reason why I can't do it. They'll go in that destructive thinking. And they'll turn around and go back into the harbour and, I'm safe, I'm secure, blah, blah, blah. Some people, and mostly people with trauma, will anchor down and they won't even sail around in the harbour. And the ship will just stay still, and it'll grow barnacles on it, and all the sails and canvas will rot, and the ropes will disintegrate, and they'll just become very unhealthy. And so what we actually need to do is to experience the waves and the storms and get out there and trust that we're going to be okay. It's character building, it's character revealing, it's really where all of our growth lies. Our minds need to meet resistance in order to get stronger. Yep. It's the same as our bodies. If you just walk into a gym and look at a 10 kilo weight and go, no, it looks a bit too heavy. I think I'll just stand here and look at it instead, for an hour. You're not going to walk out of that gym, with muscles that are trying to grow. So mentally, and it comes back to survival base human instinct. We don't want to experience pain. We don't want to experience suffering. We don't want to experience discomfort. So we're going to avoid it. But what we haven't learnt, I don't think, is that we need to lean into it and override that old basic survival thing, because it's not necessary anymore, and push ourselves through that comfort zone. So get out there.
Yeah, it's something you've spoken about a lot on the show. It's like living within the laws of nature. And the laws of nature dictate that if we meet resistance, work through resistance, then we do become stronger in that area. We become more resilient. And the gym one's a good analogy. It's like we have to go through resistance for this physical body or these muscles to get stronger, or cardiovascular. We go through the resistance of a long run or bike ride, but in the process, we get stronger cardiovascular fitness.
But imagine a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. It's got no idea what it's going to become. It just has to trust its nature, but it has to go through a really uncomfortable experience. Imagine what it would be like talk about fucking metanoia. This caterpillar, breaks down and then rebuilds and comes alive, but then all of a sudden it can fly. So that discomfort, literally, and the Myndfit motto is discomfort precedes success, because it's so true. If you're trying to buy a house, you've got to save money and sacrifice going out and having fun to get a deposit. So there's that discomfort. Or whether it's running a marathon, you set that goal. You're not going to do it by sitting on the couch. You've got to get out and train and push yourself and run 10, 15, 20, 30k. So we do need to grasp this concept of embracing discomfort. Don't go looking for it. Don't go trying to manifest it. Don't go picking fights and everything. Don't try and, but when you meet it, when you encounter it on your way to your goal, then it's really important to lean through it. And most people have a goal that they'd like to be happy, but they don't know what happiness is, and they don't know that happiness is a byproduct of doing all these other things. So yeah, that's where we need to keep finding teachers to help us to break through.
And even finding teachers can be uncomfortable. There's another saying, I think it's always before learning comes confusion. So it's like, if we want to learn something new, we have to be confused before we learn it. because and this is something like but people are
it's
always
like going through the fog. Yeah,
people are always just trying to sound smart and like they know everything. And so they never want to seem confused. But then if we don't be confused, then we don't learn anything. All we're doing is hearing stuff that we already know, so we can confirm what we know, which just keeps us, in a small comfort zone. What'd you say?
Well, when we speak, we're only repeating what we already know. So that's why we need to listen and ask questions. Have you got a bit of pen and paper next year?
Yes.
No.
Yes, I do.
All right, so listeners, press pause and run and grab a bit of paper and a pen, and then come back and press play. All right, welcome back, listeners. And pull over if you're driving. Okay, so Ryan, where are you?
Earth.
Okay, so write that down.
No, I'll say I'm on Koh Samui.
Koh Samui, write that down.
Yep.
Where's Koh Samui?
It's part of Thailand, but it's on planet Earth.
So Thailand. So write
All
Thailand
right.
down.
Okay.
And listeners, do this as well. Where are you? Whether you're in Dubbo or Dallas or Dalesford, wherever you want to be.
But you must be in a place starting with D. Otherwise, turn off now.
All right. So you're in Koh Samui.
Koh Samui,
you're in Thailand,
which is Thailand.
Where's Thailand?
Southeast Asia.
All right. SE Asia. Write that down.
Yep.
Where's Southeast Asia?
Earth.
Okay. Write Earth down. Where's Earth?
Earth is in the Milky Way galaxy. It's in our solar system, in the Milky Way galaxy.
Milky Way. And
yep.
then in the solar system, I think you said.
But our solar system is part of the Milky Way, yep.
Okay.
And then our Milky Way is, I'll just say, in the universe.
Okay, so write down the universe. And where's the universe?
It's everywhere.
Where's the universe?
Where is the universe? It's here and everywhere else.
It is here.
Mm.
So where are you right now, Ryan?
I'm here.
Right down here.
Here.
Now count how many steps it took you to get to that answer.
8.
Usually it's 8 or 9. Yeah,
8.
Most people have southern hemisphere in there.
Right, okay.
So I use this as a tiny little exercise to highlight what our minds do, and we're going to constantly claw. We don't want to say, I don't know. We don't want to look silly. We don't want to look stupid. We don't want to be seen as being imperfect. So this is what stops people from reaching out and finding a teacher or asking for help. We think we know everything, or we think we have to know everything. We really struggle as humans to sit in a space of being ignorant, because we think the word ignorance is a real negative word, but it's not. It's just a fact. We are all ignorant, and that's okay. We're just ignorant to varying degrees. So when someone comes in the office, I want to see how their minds are working and what's going on. What we're trying to get them from is their mind rushing off into this, I have to be perfect and I have to know the answer and I have to be right, to sitting in more an acceptance of I don't know. And it's such a beautiful space to sit in. I don't know.
It's opening. It's actually opening.
Well, it's relieving. It's so relieving. There's no pressure. Think of what the nervous system is doing every time your mind starts clawing for an answer. Yeah. It's tightening, it's tightening, it's tightening. So when we can just sit in, I don't know. Oh, okay. Well, let's learn. Let's learn together. Okay. It's so much more still. It's so much more peaceful. So then I ask, what time is it? And people will look at their clocks and they'll say, it's 11:56. And is it? Oh, it's 11:56 in 22 seconds. Click. No, it's not. 23 seconds. Click. So they keep chasing this time to try and be right. Okay, what time is it? Now. All right. So there is only the here and now. That's all that exists. And if people can sit in that, the here and now, there's not the past, there's not the future. You know, I'm not operating under this. I have to chase this time. I'm not in this time constraint and this restriction of time. It frees us up. It frees all our nervous system up, just to relax and to soften and to quieten and to calm and just breathe. It can help us to breathe.
Yeah, it's so true. It makes me think of a couple of things. One of them is we have this kind of with Tommy at the minute. You know, he can't tell us if he's upset. He can't tell us what's up. He's starting to use his words a little bit now, but it's like he can't express it. So, you know, me and Mel sit there, and Mel's like, is your sore tummy? You know, is it your teeth? And she's like, babe, do you reckon it's this? And I'm like, babe, I've never had one before, so I'm not sure. Like, I've never had a kid before, so I'm as clueless as you. She goes, yeah, we don't know, do we? I'm like, we don't know. Let's just sit here and do it. You know, see what comes up. And we're
going to learn, and we're going to sit in discomfort because we're seeing our child in suffering, which we don't want to be doing. But instead of panicking and going to fight, flight, and trying to fix, we're actually just going to sit here and communicate on a level that we're not accustomed to or used to, and we're going to learn.
It's this need to know. It's this need to know feeling, isn't it?
Yeah. And that comes from one of those 3 irrational beliefs. I must be perfect. I must be liked. You know, people have to. If I'm seen to be ignorant, people aren't going to like me. It's an ego thing that pops up. Yeah,
because the thing is, we are all so drastically ignorant. It's not even worth pointing out. It's so what? So all I'm aware of right now, like my consciousness, I'm aware of just what's in front of me. I'm aware of you on the screen and the windows and the trees that I can see. So how many other things are happening in the universe right now?
But so here's an example. I sent my girlfriend a text message at 7:30 this morning, and she hasn't responded yet. So that source of stimulus in the past would have triggered my mind to go rushing into my imagination and into this future and down this rabbit hole of all the what ifs and what's going on and worst case scenarios and jumping to conclusions and taking it personally and blah 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 blah. But because I've gotten out of my discomfort and I've learnt and I've challenged and I've gone to the mental gym and I've rewired, I can now just sit here in my ignorance and say I have no idea what's going on. She will get back to me whenever she's ready to. It's not about me. It's not about, there's three beliefs. I must be perfect. I must get what I want and when I want it, and I must be loved. Those three very toxic, immature, childish, irrational beliefs would have all been triggered in a past version of me with this very tiny little source of stimulus. Because I'm not getting what I want and when I want it, which is a message back immediately. I need to know this answer. I'm not being loved. She's ignoring me. I'm in timeout, would have been my old way of thinking. Well, that's not true. And she's not perfect and I'm not perfect and all of that's okay. So what can I control? Once again, put that up against Viktor Frankl walking out of Auschwitz. That's all I can control is how I choose to feel. But I can only choose how I feel because I've done the work and I've created a capacity to sit in that space between stimulus and response, and I can just observe objectively instead of judging and criticizing and condemning and living in panic and fear and anxiety and stress. It's a very, very different existence.
Yeah, but then I think talking about expanding comfort zones, then people need to be comfortable with whatever feeling that brings up. Because obviously there's, like when you start this work early on, if you've got those beliefs, the perfect, need to be loved, everyone needs to like me, then there's going to be really strong emotions associated with that. So let's say the next step is being able to let that go and say, I don't know what's going on, right? Now, for a lot of people, there will be
that's that I am ignorant, I'm mediocre, and
yeah, your mate.
Yeah, you're all ignorant, you're all incompetent, you're all mediocre. And we all are, as you said. But it's to a degree, and that's okay. It's okay to be all three of those things. They're not bad things. We've got to get out of this black and white thinking. It's not good or bad to be ignorant. It's just a literal fact that we are. Yeah.
So if a lot of people perceive that as bad, there'll be an associated feeling, and I would encourage people to get uncomfortable and sit in that feeling of not knowing, and so you can start to get comfortable with that, because that's then yours to deal with. It reminds me of
it's been triggered, isn't it? And it's really important for us to shift into seeing being triggered as an opportunity, because there's that weak spot, if you want to call it. That's where I need to do some training. That's where I need to strengthen or let go.
Those reps, Nick. Yeah, those words.
Those mental reps. That's where I need to get mindful.
Well, these ones are emotional reps. It's like if you've done the mental rep of saying, letting go of those beliefs and just saying, now I'm going to sit with me not knowing or me being ignorant. That's great, because now it's like you're not triggered by the other person. You're just triggered by your own sense of not being okay with not knowing. So then,
but when you detach from those irrational beliefs, it's going to stop creating those cognitive distortions. It's going to bending your mind out of shape, which is then going to stop pushing you into an emotional disturbance or suffering.
I still think people will have an emotional disturbance with not knowing.
They will, but the more you can detach from those beliefs and operate in a more logical, rational belief that we're all incompetent. If you can sit in acceptance of what is, instead of living in the reality of what you think should, would, or could happen, initially you'll still feel those disturbances, but because you've cut off the flow to them, they're just going to they're going to reduce of their own accord. So yeah, it's important to sit there and observe them objectively and go, these are old feelings, this is old wiring, this is old, it's not part of my new normal. It's going to come through this is the metanoia. It's breaking down and then rebuilding, and there's going to be a transition process.
Which is the comfort zone thing. I think this is beautiful. This is a really good analogy, because it's like, yes, because by being uncomfortable and breaking those beliefs and just sitting with the initial uncomfortableness or disturbance with not knowing, it's awkward, yeah? But then all of a sudden you'll create a different frame of reference around not knowing for it to being like an opening thing instead of a disturbance thing.
Well, it's like reconditioning. It's reconditioning, because if you sit with the awkwardness, if you've held on to a long-term belief that I must be perfect, which most of us have from birth, it seems to be this human nature, and at the age of 30 or 40 or 50 or whatever, you come into an understanding or some knowledge that you are incompetent, you are ignorant, and that you are mediocre, because you don't know everything, you can't do everything, and you're not the best at everything. Yeah. So you're going to be able to do some things well, you're going to know some stuff, but if you can sit with that intelligence, when you sit with it long enough, and that's at the edge of your comfort zone, that's the edge of that harbour, and when you lean into that and when you embrace it, it starts to dissipate, and that starts reconditioning you. That's where you're literally reconditioning your systems to let that go. You're processing it, you're absorbing it, you're expunging or expending it.
Yeah. I think that people's main issue in life is not being able to sit with that awkwardness or uncomfortableness or what's coming up in their body. It's just where we are conditioned to just move away from it. So if we're talking about, if I, from a personal point of view, if someone says, how can I best expand my comfort zone? My first bit of advice would be, despite anything you're going to do out here to start doing stuff, it would be being more comfortable with being uncomfortable and being with the energies in your body without trying to distract yourself or escape or change external world to deal with that.
A cool little trick to do is, if you're watching on Ryan's YouTube channel, Centre for Healing, jump on, you can actually see us in the podcast. But if you're listening, just clasp your hands together. Hass, do this with me. So clasp.
I'll put this as a little clip on Instagram as well.
Okay. So
unless it goes shit out, then I won't.
Your palms and fingers together, and then let your fingers interlock. Okay, and then have a look at which thumb is on top. So for me, it's my left thumb.
Oh, look at this. I've got them both equal.
Oh. You're non-dualistic.
But it would be, if I was to go with the way my fingers are locking, it would be left on top.
Okay. So now simply open back up and slide the fingers across to fit into another slot. And so the right thumb is then on top, or the opposite thumb. And how does that feel? Just sit with how that feels.
Yeah, it's much more uncomfortable than the natural way I do it.
Yeah, it's awkward, isn't it? So because we're so stuck in a pattern, our natural habit is to have our left thumb on top for us. So if we can, a couple of times a day when we're just sitting and doing nothing, you're watching TV or you're having a chat with someone, just grab your hands and start putting them in the opposite place. Get out of your comfort zone, get out of your natural patterning, get out of your natural habits, get out of autopilot, and it's going to rewire your brain.
Yeah. I do. I haven't done this in a while, but I was doing this for a while. It's like brushing my teeth because I'm left-handed. I brush with my right hand. Yeah, just for a few days, just get up, because everything, especially that morning routine of like shower, brush your teeth, all that kind of stuff, it's so automatic. Like I've had showers where I've got out and I'm like, I've forgotten whether I've washed the shampoo out of my hair or if I even washed myself, because I've just been so off in mind and everything happened on autopilot. And I've gone out of the shower sometimes like, did I? Oh yeah, the shampoo's out of my hair. Like, so this stuff's all just trying to bring conscious awareness to this stuff that we do unconsciously.
Yeah. I had a mate in the army. Looking back, I didn't realise how probably woke he was at the time, and he probably didn't even know it. But close your ears if you've got sensitive ears, listeners. But he used to masturbate with his right hand usually, and so he'd switch it every week to his left hand, so he'd alternate weekly just to experience something differently, just to change it up. how woke of him. He's just
what a woke wanker. so funny. Yeah, so I encourage people, so then we're doing these things that are a little bit uncomfortable, and then the next time something happens, be it with your partner at work or family member, when someone says something that triggers you emotionally, take a moment, whether you have to finish the conversation and go off, and take a moment to just sit there and just explain really logically what happened. This person said that, and then just sit with that feeling in your body and locate it on your body. Do you feel it in your stomach or your chest? Like, what's the emotion? And just really start to be with that. And what you'll do, when we give it our light of attention, you'll notice that it will start to dissipate and release. And this is a process of getting more and more comfortable with the energies in our body, because all of us just want to suppress those energies or start to throw them and make someone else wrong, when the truth is every single reaction that we have emotionally is ours. And we need to own that.
It's so empowering to sit there, and instead of saying, he made me feel, or she made me feel, or that made me feel, as soon as you say, that made me, that's very disempowering. And it's not true, because it's just, as you said, it's your reaction to the stimulus is to become agitated based on the irrational belief that you've got going on that subconscious level.
Yeah.
So sitting there and observing it and going, okay, I can feel this agitation rising. I can feel anxiety or stress or discomfort of some level, or feeling stuck or guilty or ashamed or whatever. I'm just going to sit there and observe that and acknowledge that it's there. But I'm going to reverse engineer and go, okay, where's it coming from? Well, I think she should have sent me a text message by now. Okay, should she have? No, it's not a universal law that she should. It's my law. So she's not doing anything wrong. She's just breaking one of my personal laws. Okay, so where's that coming from? I must get what I want, or it must be perfect, or things must happen when I need them to. So that's me being irrational, which is creating that irrational thinking, which is creating that suffering. And so I'm the creator of all of my own suffering.
Yes. Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. It's just this mind. This mind just gets out of control. It's just,
it's not trained. And this is the thing. People are walking around with this huge expectation that they should be happy. Yet hardly anyone, not many people, are doing the work, are getting out of their comfort zone and going, right, I understand this thing in my head and wherever else it is controls so much of what I do and think and feel. So instead of leaving it unattended to, I might actually do some work with it and train it.
It's a good idea.
It
reminds me of Byron Katie, who I think she's fantastic. And
I always think of Byron Katie as a transsexual, because it's like Byron and Katie.
Byron and Katie.
Okay. Yeah, it's just
Mate, she probably identifies as just an infinite being of light, so it wouldn't matter what you called her.
Wonderful.
But she would notice these, compulsions in herself, and she had at one point, I think her daughter was an alcoholic or a drug addict, and she was sitting at home not knowing where she was, and just the mind, she should be at home, she should be messaging me back, I should go and get her, I need to know where she is, I need to go and get her. And then at the end, she just broke it down, and it just get really simple. And she just said, lady sitting at home in a chair, worried about her daughter. And then just went into the feelings of fear that she had, right? So it's just stopping this constant fear chatter. And then the funny thing is, myself, in the Families of Addiction course that I did, we speak about this, and a lot of people don't want to hear it. But, parents have this compulsion to I need to make sure they're safe. I need to make sure they're safe. Like, where are you? I'll come and get you. That compulsion to need to know that your son or daughter is safe is the exact same compulsion a drug addict has for their drug. Both people want their system to relax. Now, people don't want to hear that. Now, this is beautiful when people understand this, because they can at least understand the compulsion of the drug addict, because they have the same compulsions in them, just because they want to know that their son or daughter is safe.
So we're always trying to alleviate our suffering.
Yeah, we just want to feel safe. We want to feel at home.
Yeah, because what people are doing is working themselves into a heightened state.
Yeah.
And usually it's anxiety, which is fear. And so then when they've instantly outsourced their happiness, I can't be happy until I know where my son is. I can't be happy until I get that next fix. I can't be happy until she sends me that text message. So we're going to do another podcast in a couple of weeks about accountability, but it is if someone says if you had a superpower, what would it be? And mine would be to help everyone understand that we all have to take responsibility for our happiness instead of outsourcing it to things that we can't control, that people that don't care about our happiness, to all these things that are in constant change and flux and ebb and flow. And yeah, there's so much unnecessary suffering out there.
There is. Let's talk about a few things that maybe we've done in the past to get outside our comfort zone, because a lot we've spoken about now is people that are in, some significant suffering. Let's talk about for people who are just trying to push those edges out a little bit more. Things might be going okay in their life, they're doing pretty well, but they do want to expand their comfort zone. I always do like the analogy, because people think that, they can't expand their comfort zone and they're just naturally meant to keep things small and can't do things. And it's like, I think expanding our comfort zone is us getting used to greater and greater energy. It's us just pushing the boundaries of what we can take energetically until that new energy becomes the norm. And it's like, if you don't think that you're brave or can do things, you can do the thought experiment. I think Michael Singer talks about this, is that imagine that you're in the car and just think of like the most courageous person you can think of throughout history. Like think about I don't know, Alexander the Great or Genghis Khan or Joan of Arc or whoever comes to mind for just the bravest person, right? And you would never compare yourself to being as brave as them. And then imagine that you're cruising down the Monash freeway at 100 k's an hour and poof, they appear in the passenger seat next to you, right? They're like fucking whoever, Genghis Khan's in the passenger seat next to you and you're driving. How would they be? Okay, they would be freaking the fuck out. They would be like, what is this machine? What are we doing? How fast are we going? You're sitting there driving the car, you're probably talking to someone on the phone, you're doing your makeup, you're changing lanes. They would think you are the most enlightened, courageous, brave human beings in the entire world. And they'd be like, is this safe? Like, do people die doing this? And you'd be like, yeah, people die every day doing this. And they'd be like, oh my God, you are just a god in my eyes, right? Why? Because you just gotten used to that energy. And we just think that driving down the freeway at 100 k's is nothing. But to someone throughout history who wasn't used to that energy, that would be so far outside their comfort zone, they would want to get out immediately. So, Nick, what's something that you've done to get outside the comfort zone?
As you're doing that, we all insert ourselves into stories when someone else is speaking. So I was thinking, who would mine be? And I was like, Buddha would be the most bravest person I can think of.
How would Buddha go?
Well, he'd just sit there and observe, and he'd accept that this is what it is, and he'd just be in the moment of what's happening.
Oh, you don't know that.
Yeah, dude, he's a pretty enlightened motherfucker.
He was, but you put him in that thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that he'd be chill.
He'd be chill.
There's lots. What opened me up, what freed me, I guess, is, we talk about metanoia and breaking down these old beliefs and that foundation that wasn't working for me in the past. When I rebuilt myself, I consciously chose to put a few certain beliefs in place, some new core beliefs. And one of them was that I do my best work outside of my comfort zone. And so operating off that on a subconscious level, just sort of, Richard Branson, if someone asks you something, you say yes and then figure it out later.
Yep.
It's that I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to learn. I'm going to jump in the deep end. And essentially what it comes down to is trusting yourself. And because if you sail out of that harbour, you've gone from pretty shallow water, pretty safe water, with other people around, you're suddenly on the high seas. You're at the mercy of the wind and the rain and the tides and sharks and all that sort of shit. So you really have to trust in yourself to leave that comfort zone. So that's probably the first thing you need to equip yourself with, this self-belief, this self-trust. Instead of living in fear and white-knuckling at, oh God, and wishing, wanting, hoping that I'm going to come out of this okay, hiding below deck. You've got to stand up behind the helm and bring this shit on. But I'm going to trust that I'm going to work my way through this. So that was a big leap of faith for me, is learning to trust myself. And it was just a decision. It wasn't something I had to practice. It was just this very deep decision that I made, a commitment to the future me, really, to trust myself. And that just opened up everything. What happened next was I remember the day I did this, I handed myself over to the universe. So I fully surrendered to everything, and I went, I cannot control bugger all, and I'm going to stop trying. I'm going to just live in flow instead of living in force. And so now I just listen to things. So, I've gone from not being able to leave my house in Mornington, Victoria, to working at the world leading luxury health resort in Thailand. Now, I didn't chase that, I didn't try for that, but it just so happened that there was this series of events, and if I didn't trust myself, if I had cocked blocked myself at every step, I wouldn't have been there. Because if I had this belief that no, I can't do it, or it's too hard, or who am I to work at this resort? So I had to first liberate my mind of all of those unhelpful attachments to free myself up to go, sure, I'll apply, I'll send them an email, I'll go and visit them, I'll just see what happens. So step by step by step, it was just, let's see what happens. So it's sort of like working with the universe. I'm meeting the universe halfway. I'll apply, and then the rest is out of my control. So at the moment, I'm just about to expand Myndfit, and I'm looking at renting another building and creating this hub, this mental health gym on the Mornington Peninsula, where people can come and do meditative exercise and cognitive retraining. And it's going to take a leap of faith. It's more commitment, it's more money, it's right out of my comfort zone. I've never done it before. So I'm sitting here going through this process, like checking in with myself. How am I feeling about this? Yeah, a bit nervous. All right, there's a bit of tightness. My voice just went up. All right, that's me tightening up. All right, relax, trust, feel your way into it, do what you can do, but sort of go with your gut instinct as well. So, yeah, for me, it's just every day is sort of getting out of my comfort zone. Every day is just a little bit more, and my mind has expanded to the point where I'm comfortable with so much now, where that past version of me was only comfortable in my lounge room at home.
Yeah, you said something really interesting. It was so interesting that I can't remember it.
I hope so.
It was what was the point? It was basically that, like, you've been doing this for years. You've made a decision years ago that you do your best work outside your comfort zone. So you've been actively, pushing those boundaries and getting comfortable with more and more. But people tend to say, if I've got an urge to go and do something, but then I'm like, I have this fear and this uncomfortableness because it is outside my comfort zone. And then I see other people doing it, and I make the assumption that it's been easy for them. I make the assumption that for them it's been fine.
Looking at a bodybuilder and going, you look at the end result and you don't realise what went into that.
That's right. And it's just, whenever we get outside our comfort zone, it's uncomfortable for everyone all the time. So if that belief that for other people it's been easy tends to hold people back from going outside that comfort zone. So I think it's really important for people to hear someone who's been embodying this for years and doing it for years, saying, this new project, it's bringing up those nerves and those constrictions in me that I have to sit with and work through, and then still take action regardless.
Totally. But then I'll look at Catherine Ingram and Ram Dass and all these, Alan Watson, all these extremely woke people, the Dalai Lama, Eckhart Tolle. You look at all these people, Don Miguel, and I don't compare myself to them. In the past, I would look at them. It's called Oprah Winfrey syndrome. So many people go and watch Oprah and go, "Oh my God, Oprah's amazing. I could never be like Oprah. She's amazing." They put her up on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, as soon as you put them up on a pedestal, you're never going to achieve that. You've created a heap of limiting beliefs. You've stuck a big glass ceiling on your head, and you've retarded, in a very literal sense, your growth. So I just realised that I'm on a path, and a decade down the track, the clients that I'm working with are just coming onto that path. But then I'm still a student when I look at people further ahead of me. But I don't go, oh, I wish I was them, or blah, blah, blah. I just really admire what they've done, and I don't focus on them. I focus on me, but I try and constantly learn from them. And imagine what it took to get from being unable to leave your house to where I am now, like the getting out of the comfort zone, going and doing a 10-day silent retreat, meditation retreat, sitting in stillness for many hours a day, just observing the sensations in your body. Imagine, everything that I had to do internally and what I had to change and shift and break and grow. It's like literally the caterpillar into the butterfly. And that took a fucking lot of discomfort. And I guess that's what really qualifies me to do what I'm doing now.
Well, because you can only meet someone as far as you've met yourself. And people who are coming in to see you are uncomfortable with their life and what's going on internally. So it's like, you don't want to... It's like, I've probably said this before, it's like, I don't want to go and get financial advice over someone who got an inheritance and has been rich forever, or I don't want to go take health advice from, if I'm overweight, I don't want to see someone who's been thin and ripped forever. I want to know someone who's been broke and made money, or been fat as fuck and then got in shape. That's what I want to know.
I had a client say to me a couple of weeks ago, at the end of his program, he's this 72-year-old guy, and he's been in property development and business for many, many years, and he goes, Nick, are you qualified to do what you do? Because I don't hang up any of my certificates or anything like that. And I laughed. I was like, yeah, mate, I am. Why? It's like, because the people in my life that are the best at what they do aren't technically qualified at it. So he said, my accountant is the best accountant you'll ever meet, but he's not an accountant. So he's the head of his accounting firm. He's got accountants working for him, but he's not technically an accountant. Mm-hmm. He said the best architect I ever know, who builds the most amazing homes, isn't classically trained as an architect and isn't qualified as an architect, but is amazing at designing homes. And he said, you're the same. He goes, I'm 72. I've had that many psychologists and psychiatrists and shrinks and head doctors, and they've all had these doctorates and diplomas and everything spread across their walls. And he said, I come in here to your office and you've got some dead plant hanging off your wall. And it's like, but you in 12 weeks have helped me to grow and shift and change more than any of them. And he said, it's just, what he realised is that they haven't done the work on themselves. They haven't walked the path.
Mm. Yeah, and we pick up on that. And it's not everyone, but oftentimes those certificates can be handcuffs in a certain way, golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
There's something else I want to talk about, because this whole thing, I don't want to get out of my comfort zone because I don't want to be uncomfortable, and I don't want to be not good at something, and we just want to be good. And that comes from this belief you speak about of not wanting to be, or needing to be perfect. And I think this is a belief that I've probably yet to meet someone who hasn't got it, that it needs to be broken down. And I think
I call it human nature.
Mm.
But what we don't do, and we've spoken about this before, is we don't have that stepping into manhood anymore. At the age of 15, we don't have to go and do that. What's initiation? That
rites of passage.
We used to do. Yeah, that rite of passage. Where I would love it for when we're walking out of year 12 or even primary school, for someone to pull us up and go, right, you've got these 3 beliefs: you must be loved, you must be perfect, you must get what you want. They're all irrational. They've worked for you as a kid. You've had your tantrums and your hissy fits and thrown the toys out of the pram and everything. But you're going into the real world now. You go into life. So here's some new beliefs. You are irrational. You are incompetent. You're mediocre. You're ignorant. Okay, you're not perfect. But you are loved. And you are loved first and foremost by yourself. Okay, and every day you're going to be the best you can be in that moment, and that's okay. All right, and sometimes you're going to know stuff, sometimes you're going to not know stuff, and that's okay too. So off you go, have a happy life. We don't do that. We don't stop and go through this maturity process of breaking down these old, outdated beliefs for some reason.
Well, because it's very hard to. Our rites of passage now are drinking with our mates when we're teenagers, and we're not learning a lot there.
But shoot some kangaroos.
And we're running a bit late on time, but I just want to touch on this. It's like, I think this needing to be perfect is we learn good from bad or right from wrong at a young age, and it's like we learn once we can start to talk and communicate, and we can start to understand our parents. We all of a sudden say, I get rewarded for being good and I get punished for being bad. And then the first time that I go to do something, which in my mind, it's just me expressing myself, right? There's no good or bad, I'm just expressing, and I get told, no, that's bad. Then all of a sudden I go, so me just expressing myself as I should gets punished. So now that starts this process of altering behavior. So instead of just expressing myself and being human, I'm trying to do things that are good to get rewarded, and do things and avoid doing things that are bad, and I'll get punished. And it's in
accordance with somebody else's belief system.
In accordance with someone else's belief system. So now I'm now altering my natural instincts. And this is the fall from the garden. This is why Adam and Eve is such a beautiful metaphor. It's like everything was perfect and there was no judgment or anything in the garden until they tasted the fruit from the tree of knowledge and learnt good from evil. And then all of a sudden, that's when Adam, I think it was God, was like, Adam, where are you? I can't find you. And he said, I'm hiding. He said, why are you hiding, Adam? It's because I'm naked. So he started judging himself. And this is the birth of good and evil, right and wrong. And I think it's a beautiful analogy for us always thinking that we need to be perfect when we already are.
It's pretty pointed. I'll be quick with it. But I had a client this morning, came in, and she's week 4 of a program. And we just landed on something really succinct today, that she beats herself up. And I reflected to her, and she had no awareness that she was really doing it so much. And all of a sudden she had a really important and emotional reaction to it. She was really crying. And I just let her cry for a while, and then I just inquired as to what she was experiencing. And she said, I just realised how frustrated I am with constantly beating myself up. That's that self-flagellation.
It's a full-time job. It doesn't fucking stop.
But she said, but what we learned, I said to her, half jokingly but half serious, have you had a Catholic upbringing? Because every one of my clients who has had a Catholic upbringing is into this self-flagellation. And she said, no, but I'm third generation Italian. And she said, we have a history of we must be perfect, and her mum was very critical. And because I said to her, where did you learn this? Where did you learn to beat yourself up? Where did you learn that just because you do this, it means you're not perfect and you have to be perfect? Because that's an acquired pattern. And she's like, oh, yeah, my mum. And I said, okay, we're not going to sit here and judge because your mum would have learnt it from someone else. She goes, yeah, my grandma. I said, all right, so all of a sudden this emotional family heirloom's been handed down from generation to generation. And I said, what happened to you in your childhood on your mum's isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to break that chain and to break that cycle. So, and she had a laugh when I said, adulthood is just undoing everything that happens to us in childhood. It's that unconditioning, deconditioning, getting rid of, stepping out of mum and dad's beliefs and stepping into your own authenticity.
Yeah, so true. De-hypnotizing.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, mate. We'll wrap it up there. That was fun. That flew by, that one.
Wait till we get into accountability. That's going to be good.
Yeah, that'll be fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Follow us on Instagram. Shoot us some DMs. Any questions? Give us a rating and review, please. Ratings and reviews really, really help us get the word out. We do have some guests coming up. We've even got Gussie Warland coming up, which is a radio presenter from Sydney, I think, in 2 weeks. That's really exciting, and we'll be able to get more great guests, woke guests, people doing great work. Eckhart Tolle, maybe. He was on Russell Brand's podcast last week, so we might get Eckhart on.
Hey, if anyone wants to hear us interview someone, send them in. Send in some guest requests.
Yeah, we'll be happy to. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Nico. Nico, you sign us off because you welcomed us.
I did. Thanks, Ryan. I hope you have a wonderful time in Thailand with the fam. Whatever you're doing, everyone out there. Thanks for listening, and peace.
Peace.